The next thing we're going to talk about is probably the most useful tool for scanning a hacker can have, and that's Nmap. We're going to go ahead and talk about Nmap, and then I'll show you how to use the tool and its different switches. And then in the next segment, we'll go ahead and do a demonstration of both the command line version of an Nmap and the GUI version. Now, Nmap is probably the most common, most popular network scanner out there, and it's been out there for a number of years. Basically, if you're a hacker or a security person, one of the first things you'll cut your teeth on is Nmap and learn how to use it. Now, obviously, you'd want to use the command line utilities for the exam, but I will tell you that over time, the front end for an Nmap called Nmap has probably become just as effective, so there's no shame in using the GUI whenever you like. Now, Nmap's capable of conducting a wide variety of scans using all the different protocols we've talked about, TCP, ICMP, and UDP, and different variations. In fact, you have customizable targets and ranges and customizable scans. You can vary the levels of speed and intensity in order to not be detected by an IDS. You can also alter the type of scan in terms of what packets are sent. You might want to do that because you might be targeting a specific OS or a specific type of device, and you only need to send packets specific to that device to get certain things back. Now, as I mentioned, Nmap comes in both the command line and GUI versions, and the GUI is called Nmap, and you can get that for either Windows or Linux versions, either command or GUI. Now, one thing about Nmap is I mentioned that there are several dozen other tools out there probably that you could use for network scanning. One cool thing is that if you know Nmap, you basically know all these other tools because most of them will use Nmap as their back-end scanning engine to scan the network. Now, they may give you a different GUI or a different front end and show it in a little bit more prettier fashion, but a lot of them use Nmap. If you can use Nmap, you can use anything else. It may take a little bit to learn how the tool is laid out and the cute little features it may have, but Nmap is really the way you want to learn first. Nmap has a multitude of switches and options. In fact, I'm going to go into Backtrack right now and show you what some of those options and switches are. Okay, we're in Backtrack 5 Release 3, and what I want to do just really quickly is show you a little bit about Nmap and what the switches are. Now, we're going to, in our next session, actually run Nmap from the command line, and I'll also show you the Nmap, the GUI front end for Nmap as well. Now, to get Nmap to execute, obviously you have to have the package downloaded on your box, and you can do this for Windows or Linux. If you're using Backtrack, Nmap is automatically installed on the box. In fact, in a lot of different Linux distributions, Nmap is already installed. You don't have to do anything. So all we have to really do is type in Nmap, and we'll hit enter, and we get a lot of information. Let's scroll up a little bit and see what we got. Now, Nmap basically gives you several options. It starts with the target specification. You can give Nmap host names, IP addresses, and entire network ranges if you like. In fact, it gives you an example here of how you can put these different targets in terms of names and IP address ranges into Nmap. You can also take an input file name, a list of hosts and networks if you like. It's just a simple text file, one IP address per line or one network per line, and that's all you need. And you can use the IL switch, -i capital L, in the Nmap command to tell it to pull from that list. So if you already have a list of targets, you can pull that in. You can also, out of a range, tell it to choose random targets, because a lot of intrusion detection systems will pick up when you scan sequential IP addresses. So if you use random ones within that IP address range, that might help you get a more stealthy scan. As far as host discovery goes, again, several options here. You can do a ping scan, where you don't scan ports, obviously. You can do TCP SYN, ACK scans, UDP, and so forth. So you can really customize the way you scan the box itself. Different scan techniques, TCP SYN full connect scans, simple ACK scans, and so forth. You can also do UDP scans. Everything is in the switches, and you really should know the switches for the exam, the common ones, the -ST, the -SU, and so forth. Some of these are particularly interesting types of switches and options because they can help you go stealthy in a scan. So it would be a good idea to learn how some of these techniques work, and some of them use multiple switches and options to get a particular technique to work. can also specify port ranges if you're scanning UDP or TCP. You can get versions of a particular operating system and application. You can do OS detection, that's OS fingerprinting, where you grab banners to see what kind of operating system is out there. And you can also guess the operating system based upon the replies back you get from the host. There's firewall and IDS evasion techniques that are out there. Again, it's a very simple program to use, but it has a lot of complex variations and switches that even probably most experts don't use every day. So it's helpful to study some of this stuff, especially prior to the exam, so you can figure out how this works, and definitely practice with Nmap. Use different scanning techniques. Use some of the stealthy scanning techniques in particular. You can also specify the output that you get, what format you get it in if you want to input it into something else. And there's other miscellaneous types of switches. Also, the help gives you different examples that you can use to construct a good Nmap query. So in our next session, we'll actually run an Nmap scan from the command line.